Have you ever noticed how many people, even those who were lucid and active, seem to disappear from social life after the age of 80? It's as if they suddenly start to weaken, even though they had been doing so only a short time before. Most people believe that this is purely down to genetics or luck, but that's only part of the equation. In this video, we're going to explore 5 little discussed factors, surprising elements that often go unnoticed, but which help explain why so many people find it difficult to maintain their health and vitality after the age of 80. And no, we're not talking about obvious causes such as poor diet, a sedentary lifestyle or addictions. We are going beyond that. These factors are more subtle, deeper, and sometimes affect even those who have always led a regimented life. The good news is that by understanding these elements, you can take action before it's too late. So if you've ever wondered why so many people face such huge challenges in living well into old age, this video may open your eyes, and perhaps even change the way you look at aging. Let's start with the first point, the loss of what we call a microsocial interaction. An often overlooked reason that contributes to the decline in the well-being of older people is related to the reduction of these small moments of human connection that happen on a daily basis. We're not talking about family visits or deep friendships, but rather the brief exchanges of words and glances that happen almost unnoticed, saying good morning to the postman, smiling at the supermarket cashier, or waving at the neighbor walking their dog. These moments, however simple they may seem, play an important role. They regulate the nervous system, nurture a sense of belonging and keep the brain's social connections active. However, after 80, many people stop going out to do their shopping, opt for online orders or ask their family for help with simple tasks. Their hearing may be weaker, the cold may seem more uncomfortable, their knees may no longer support them as they used to, and, little by little, these small interactions disappear from their routine. The curious thing is that few realize this change. They think they're just making life easier, when in fact they are eliminating valuable social stimuli that help keep the mood up, the mind active and the body connected to the rhythm of the world around us. Best of all, this kind of social engagement doesn't require anything complex. Throughout my life, I've met several men in their 80s who impressed me with their clarity of mind, their disposition, and the vivacity with which they faced everyday life. What struck me most, however, was that many of them didn't do anything extraordinary or out of the ordinary. A simple but extremely powerful habit seemed to be the guiding principle behind this vitality. Every morning, without fail, they left the house and walked to the same coffee shop. It was always the same route, the same place, the same familiar faces. When they got there, they exchanged a good morning with the usual attendants, nodded to 3 people who routinely sat in the same corner of the room and, for a few minutes, shared brief moments of human coexistence. That 5-minute morning routine, which many would consider trivial or even irrelevant, was actually what gave structure to their day. More than a mechanical ritual, it was a silent source of motivation, presence, and belonging. It was the kind of experience that kept them connected to the world around them, that gave meaning to the passage of time and, above all, that reinforced the feeling that they were still seen, that, somehow, they were still important to the small universe around them. What few people realize is that when this kind of interaction disappears, the effect is not just emotional or social. There is a real, deep, and often invisible physiological cost. The human brain interprets the absence of social contact, even brief, almost forgettable contact, as a warning sign. Loneliness, even when it is not accompanied by sadness or depression, is perceived as a stressor by the body. This triggers hormonal changes, raises cortisol levels, favors chronic inflammation and compromises the functioning of the immune system. But the impact goes even further. Studies show that constant isolation begins to compromise specific areas of the brain, especially those responsible for essential cognitive functions such as short-term memory, the ability to maintain attention and the ability to control emotions. The neural networks that keep these functions active literally begin to weaken, to switch off for lack of stimulation. The result? You start to feel more tired, more discouraged, less motivated, and, over time, older than you really are. If you notice yourself talking to people less throughout the day, if you no longer go out to do simple tasks like going to the bakery, the pharmacy, or even to the square to watch the traffic, if you've stopped striking up conversations with strangers, or if you've started to feel like you're just another invisible face in the neighborhood where you live, this could be an important sign. It may not seem serious at first glance, but these signs indicate that small networks of connection are breaking down, and with them goes a portion of your mental vigor, your inner energy, and even your will to remain active. And the most impressive thing is that these simple moments, these minimal exchanges, a smile, a good morning, a brief comment about the weather, are actually silent messages that the body and brain interpret as signs that there is still purpose, that you still belong to something bigger. These messages are not just symbolic, they function as a kind of invisible but powerful medicine capable of sustaining the human spirit. Reason number 2, the danger of being too careful. Being careful is important, but when care turns into fear of moving, the body begins to weaken. Often, after a slip or near fall, a person decides to stop walking, stooping, or climbing stairs. It seems like a sensible decision, but gradually the body forgets how to move. Muscles lose strength, balance worsens, and confidence disappears. The body, unlike a machine, needs to move to keep functioning properly. When we stop walking, getting up and moving around, it gradually starts to switch off. A real example is that of Mr. Walter, who at the age of 82 walked every day, but stopped after a scare. He soon became weaker and had difficulty even walking indoors. Of course, it's important to avoid falls. But this can be done intelligently, wearing sturdy shoes, putting up handrails, keeping the house safe, and even using a walking stick if necessary. The problem is when we stop living out of fear. If you've been avoiding simple activities, not because your body can't cope, but because you're afraid, think carefully, am I just looking after myself or am I not living? Continuing to move, even slowly and carefully, shows your body that it is still useful, that you are still present and active in the world. This is how you keep your brain alert, your heart strong, and your spirit alive. Remember, it's not about running or doing difficult exercises. It's about not stopping. Walk a bit, stretch, move whenever you can. Movement is a way of saying, I'm still here. Now let's move on. Reason number 3 for the silent decline after 80 is linked to interrupted sleep and the deregulation of light cycles. The body has a biological clock, the circadian rhythm, which regulates mood, energy, immunity, and brain repair during sleep. As we get older, this clock becomes more sensitive and can be easily maladjusted by too little exposure to natural light during the day and too much artificial light at night. Small changes in routine, such as long naps, fewer trips outdoors, or the use of screens at night, confuse this internal clock. Morning light is essential for waking up the body, while nighttime darkness activates the production of melatonin, the sleep hormone. Without this natural alternation, the body loses track of when to rest or be alert, resulting in poor sleep, impaired memory, low immunity, and worsening mood. Sleep quality, rather than quantity, is vital. Even if you get 8 hours of sleep, you can wake up exhausted if your rhythm is out of whack. Exposure to sunlight is also essential for the production of vitamin D, which, as we get older, becomes more difficult to synthesize. This vitamin affects much more than bones. It influences energy, muscles, the immune system, and the emotional state. Helen's example shows how small adjustments, such as exposing yourself to morning light and avoiding screens at night, can transform your mood, mental clarity, and sleep. Small actions, such as opening the curtains in the morning and creating a dark environment at night, restore the body's natural rhythm and promote health and well-being. Number 4, the unspoken pain. As the years go by and life progresses, many people, by the time they reach 80, carry more loss than a young heart could comprehend. A departed spouse, a childhood sibling, a lifelong friend, and sometimes, even a child. The world even offers a look of compassion, a kind word. But what few recognize, and almost nobody talks about, is how these losses accumulate inside the body. Not just in memory, not just in memories, but physically. What many people feel after 80 is not just sadness. It's a deep form of emotional suppression, the silent habit of swallowing pain. Smiling on the outside because I should be used to it by now, or simply keeping quiet because there seems to be no one else who really understands the depth of what has been lost. There is a profound truth that we often ignore: the body doesn't forget pain that hasn't been felt. What isn't cried, told, or shared doesn't disappear, it just hides, silent, until it finds a way to manifest itself physically. Over time, this unexpressed emotional weight weakens immunity, disrupts sleep, deregulates hormones, interferes with digestion and leaves the nervous system in constant tension, even when everything seems calm on the outside. Breathing becomes shorter, shoulders feel heavier, and that inner spark seems to go out for no reason. A touching example is that of George, an 86-year-old man who lost the wife he had lived with for 6 decades. He didn't cry, he said he was fine, and everyone accepted this silence as part of his personality. However, months later, he began to lose weight, stopped attending social gatherings and had trouble sleeping. This was no ordinary illness, it was repressed grief, a sadness that had never been allowed to breathe. Emotional pain doesn't have to be dramatic to wreak havoc. It can be discreet, hidden behind everything's fine, but when it doesn't find a way out, it gets sick. And that's why living well, especially after the age of 80, doesn't just depend on physical strength, but on the freedom to express how you feel. Having someone to talk to, a notebook to write in, a place to pray, or simply someone who listens without judgment, all this allows the heart to breathe again. And when the heart breathes, the body begins to heal. People who live long and well often have escape valves: a friend, a faith, a group, a diary, a therapist. The form doesn't matter, the principle is the same: what is expressed can be transformed. What is buried hurts. If you're keeping something inside, not by choice, but because you don't know where to put it, perhaps now is the time to make space. Not just for the pain, but to allow life to go on. The heart can only carry so much for so long before it begins to close up in silence. And when that silence grows, it steals away the will to smile, to talk, to live. Over time, we learn to live with pain. But living with it is not the same as ignoring it. When we stop talking about longing, it becomes a physical weight. We swallow tears, memories, feelings, and the body feels it all. The pain lodges in the shoulders, the back, the stomach, and slowly extinguishes the glow of life. Deep down, the secret to a long and fulfilling life lies in being honest with your feelings. Saying, "I still miss you, it still hurts," or "Oh, I feel alone," is not a sign of weakness, but of courage. And this release, as simple as it may seem, can give the heart its breath back. And when the heart breathes, life blooms again. Now, let's move on together to something just as important as pain: purpose. Few people realize it, but one of the most silent causes of suffering after the age of 80 is the loss of daily purpose, not a grandiose mission, but that simple reason that gets you out of bed. A light, almost invisible routine, such as watering the plants, feeding an animal that keeps popping up, writing a letter, or tidying the house. Small things that, in practice, give life an emotional structure. When these tasks disappear, everyday life begins to lose its shape. The body responds to the emptiness of the mind, which, without stimulation, no longer finds meaning in its days. Hunger decreases, movement slows down, and, little by little, the heart just waits, unwilling to continue fighting. This happens subtly, often disguised by justifications such as "it's just age." But the truth is that emptiness sets in and the days start to look the same. Even so, there are those who resist this erasure. Like Ruth, an 88-year-old woman who found her emotional sustenance in small gestures. Every Monday, she wrote cards for church inmates. On Thursdays, she made soup for a shelter. And every day at 4 p.m., she sat by the window to wave to the school children. She didn't have perfect health or a big family, but she kept alive the flame that many lose, the feeling that she still matters, that she still has something to offer. The secret may lie precisely in these small routines that seem simple, but give rhythm to the heart and reason to the body. As long as there is a purpose, even a modest one, life keeps pulsating. The key to a healthy old age is not just to survive, but to maintain something that moves us, that connects us to the present. Growing old with intention means preserving small rituals that offer meaning. When they disappear, the feeling of uselessness can take over, and with it, the vital energy drains away. But this picture can be transformed with seemingly banal attitudes: a conversation, a walk, a gesture of care for someone. Protecting these rhythms is protecting life itself. Thank you very much for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below, share something you learnt today, and how you plan to apply it to your life. Your thoughts are important to us, and reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement to keep creating good content to inform and inspire you. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Your support helps us to continue making more and more inspiring content. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you in the next video.